Welcome to Business Insights with Osayi Tres Omokaro, the one and only free business consultancy live radio podcast from Benin to the world. We have only one vision: to ensure that startup founders and MSMEs do business professionally and make positive and profitable impacts. Sit tight and enjoy today's episode.
Hello, good morning, listeners at home. My name is Osayi Tres Omokaro. You're welcome to today's episode. Today is going to be the last episode on our series, Business Systems and Structure for Growth and Scale. We've looked at business diagnosis, where we ask questions that you should ask yourself to know where you are in business. After that, we went further to look at why business systems and structure, where we talked about 10 core reasons why your business should have systems and structure. Then we went further to look at the documentations to expect from business systems and structure. What that means is that when you say I'm engaging a consultant to do my business and structure for me as a company, there are core documents that must become the outcome of such intervention. So today we are going to be looking at some core areas that your business systems and structure should focus on. We are looking at some core areas your business systems and structure should focus on. And like we say, this program is actually a calling program. The vision right from inception is not actually to come here and teach, but to just raise a topic, maybe share a few thoughts on it, then answer your questions. So because of that, we'll be making our phone lines available right from start. The numbers you can call, text, or WhatsApp is 0818-288-4091. You can send a text message. You can go ahead and drop a WhatsApp message, or you can go right on and just place a call. My people will just stop me at any point and I'll get to attend to your question. So today we are looking at some core areas you must cover. And by no means are we saying that this covers everything, because basically the business systems and structure every organization will need will be dependent on various categories of organization that they are. It's going to depend on the size, the type, the industry where they play. But however, irrespective of your industry, the size of your organization, or the kind of business you do, there are core areas you just can't do without. If you don't have structures around these areas, you're basically going to struggle. And the first one will be organizational structure. What in the local parlance you see as organogram is simple process flow that talks about who is in charge, who is responsible for what, and who reports to what. As simple as that, it defines the hierarchy and reporting relationships within the organization, including the roles and responsibility of each staff. An organogram. Simple. If you go to some corporate organizations, you're going to see such organogram hung on their walls. What are they trying to communicate to you is that in this place, this is the process flow. When you look at it and you are having a problem in a certain area, the organogram tells you where to start from, even without talking to somebody. That's something. Then the second one is operations and processes. This includes the procedures and workflow that are used to carry out the business core functions, such as production, customer service, sales, marketing, and all of that. All of these are developed in a document and handed over to a responsible officer. Because it's not enough to have these documentations without someone with the responsibility to implement. I was implementing this for a customer recently, and the customer asked me this. He says, "Sir, hope this will not end up becoming one of those documents that we will just pile up and go and keep." That's the fear of everybody. So just like some persons will say, I want you to build a website for me, and you build a website for them, and they're asking you 2 months, 3 months, but I'm not seeing anything coming from the website. So it's like that. When you build these things, they don't run themselves. Someone must be responsible in managing them, in drawing attention to them, in ensuring that everybody works within the confines of this structure. So when somebody is going out of it, they are called back to order. When somebody is falling sick, for instance, and is not showing up at work, you don't have to engage your sentiments. What does the document say? When somebody calls in and says, I'm not feeling well, what does the document say? If your processes already indicates that you will not be allowed to stay off work on the basis of ill health without a doctor's report, it's as simple as that. It's not whether this person is very close, whether this person is very hardworking. That's what the document says. The person engages that document. Someone just have to draw attention to, sorry, we hope you get well very soon, but please remember when you're coming, ensure to come with your doctor's report. It's as simple as that. In fact, somebody said leadership cannot be devoid of emotions and sentiments, but management doesn't have capacity to forgive. Management holds everybody accountable to the books. Leadership, of course, once in a while you need to understand that these people are human and all of that. But the truth is, if you can't marry both, you may never succeed as a business person. So if you must succeed as a business person, it's necessary that you are able to marry leadership and management. Otherwise, you become someone who is so emotionally driven until you look back one day, you practically do not have a business anymore. So the third one is finance and accounting. Finance and accounting covers the financial management of the business, including budgeting, cash flow management, and finance and accounting. This is a part of your business that must be well structured. Because whether you like it or not, whether you are a non-for-profit or you are a for-profit business, if you don't structure your finance and accounting properly, you may not exist after a while. So it's necessary that everybody understands what happens. I know of a church where the policy states that every money that comes into the cover of the church must go to the bank. As simple as that. Every money that goes into the church must end up in the bank. It means for you to take 5,000 to go buy diesel, it has to come out from the bank. As simple as that. That puts the process in place. So nobody can sentimentally change that, because this document is laid before the auditor. And when the auditor comes and is beginning to ask questions about how money was spent, the first document the auditor will need is the financial policy of the organization. So the policy also puts the MD within a space. He knows that he doesn't have capacity to go beyond that space. So people should be able to know how much is within the confines of their immediate boss. How much goes beyond his confines for approval and gets to the next line of, authority and all that. Everybody must have this process flow, So you need this to be in place for you to know what happens to your money. Remember when we are doing business diagnosis, the first question we asked ourselves, I think first of all was one of those questions we asked, was the fact that if I am asking you to give account of every fund that has come into your business in the last 3 months, can you tell me the exact amount? Can you tell me how it was spent? Can you tell me the status of things at the moment? If you cannot, it simply means that your financial and accounting process is not in place. Then another area of focus that is very important is human resource management. Human resource management. In fact, part of the practice I'm going to share with us is to talk from our own internal company policy as it relates to some of these things. Human resource includes the policies and procedures that relates to hiring, training, and managing employee, as well as compliance with labor laws. Because I hear sometimes people will tell you, oh, because you didn't come to the office on time, we are deducting so and so amount from your salary. Do you know that a lawyer said that is illegal? It's illegal. The person who is deducting from somebody's account and the person whose account is being deducted, none of them knew the law. So they are both abiding by it. But God help you that such a person happens to challenge this process. Then you realize what the law eventually says. That's why some of these things, you need to get people with legal background to also be a part of this process. You know, like I always say, business is not what you think. Business is what is. What's the reality on ground? So you need to be abreast with what is happening. You know, so your human resource processes must be in place. Your staff must have their job description. They must know what is expected of them. They must have what we call the key performance indicators. What tells them that they are working. What proves to them is not because they come to work every day. They are working because the metrics for measuring their performance is clear to them and is clear to everybody. You know, who says as an MD you shouldn't have a job description? It's part of the reason why you are stressed out. You should have your job description. You should have the things that fall within the confines of your job. You should have the things that falls out of the confines of your role, and you know how to push them to the necessary persons. Then another thing is information management. Information management. You know, if a staff is managing a particular department and for any reason that staff is unavailable, if you don't have an information management system in place, nobody have access to the information within the purview of that person until the person comes around. So imagine if the person elopes and all of a sudden choose not to come back. It means your business will be grounded. So there must be a process to manage information, you know, so that every information that comes has a place that is being kept, whether physically or virtually. So it can be accessed. It can be accessed by anybody within the organization that have clearance to be able to access such information. You know, another aspect is legal and compliance. You know, while we are looking at doing business with the goal of making money, the government is out there to ensure that you do business following some rudiments so that you are not unnecessarily strangulating the populace, paying your taxes, and doing everything you need to do within the confines of the law. So if you don't have a document that stipulates how you do different things and guides the process, if you say, oh, because the person that is currently there knows what to do, and because of that there's no need for documentation, God help you when the person is no longer there, what happens? You know, so all of these things need to be documented. Oh no, man, that department is manned by a lawyer. No, it doesn't matter. What if the lawyer is out of place tomorrow? What happens? So all of these things must be documented. Another aspect you must also cover is risk management. Business is the accumulation of risk. The entrepreneur in the various factors of production is the risk manager who manages the land, manages the labor, manages the capital to ensure that we remain profitable. It means in all of these, there are decisions that are taken. There's risk to be managed. If there is no detailed processes to identify and assess the risk, manage the risk so that business knows the kind of risk to take. Because just imagine you're running a business and you're jumping into everything that looks like an opportunity. You know, I see people say we're doing business. In fact, I had this inspiration while coming this morning. Money or income without work will leave you with money without a know-how. That's why some of these Ponzi schemes you see here and there, and people tell you, Oh, you pay this money, you make this money after a while, you pay this money, you make this money after a while. I look at it and laugh. If anything takes away that money and you are left alone, you had a lot of money, but you didn't know how it came. So you don't have the capacity to reproduce it. So right now, I'm going to just demonstrate something for us. Let's look at a well-articulated system and structure for finance and accounting. This will cover things like the financial transactions, how the financial transactions are managed, things like, first, define your financial process. You start by defining the process, such as invoicing. For every money that comes into the system, an invoice must be sent out. Who sends the invoice? Whose signatures must be on the invoice to authenticate that invoice? That will be defined in your financial statements, in your financial policy or your financial management policy. Expense tracking. How do we track expenses? How do we make payments? For instance, I work in corporate organizations where someone needs to go for a training outside of town and all of that, and they give you a certain amount. And it's expected that when you come back, there's what is called retirement, meaning you come and write how that money was spent with various documents to back it up. These are not things that they just thought of, because these are things that the policy. I worked with an organization recently, and they said part of our policy is that if we can't be in town for a certain period of the day, like on Friday, if we can't be in town by 2, wherever we are, we have to stay there till Monday. Because the policy just states that that's a policy that talks about the protection for the life of their staff. They are not allowed to travel on the express over the weekend. As simple as that. So define your processes. Who does what? Who approves what? Who approves what at certain level? When it goes beyond this level, who do you need a second level approval? Then establish the policies and procedures. Develop policies and procedures for managing financial transactions, including guidelines for approving. Who approves the expense? That somebody says this is how much we are going to spend. Does it mean the person has the financing? All of these. Then implementing accounting software. If we are going to implement an accounting software, the policy must give us some level of leverage on the kind and the cost we must spend on such an accounting software. Then establish a chart of account that shows how the money must move. Some of us still have businesses where we deal with cash. When somebody comes in with cash, what happens to that cash? Immediately, what happens to that cash? So that you're not beginning to hear things like, no, I gave it to you. No, but I gave it back to you. And we are asking questions. The policies must state what happens to cash. Possibly for some, you have your staff who go out to collect cash. What happens once the cash is handed over to you? What happens to that cash from there? And in the event that there is a mishap and this cash is missing for whatever reason, what happens? If you don't determine these things ahead of time, when these things happen, you have to fall back on sentiment, emotions. You have to fall back on things like, but this person is very hardworking and all of that. That's leadership. But when you have to apply management, I've worked in corporate organizations where your own boss that has just approved your sack is the one that drives you home at the close of work every day. That's how it works. In fact, I know of one particular one when they asked the manager for the purpose of right sizing, he said, we need one between this and this person to be dropped. And the manager said, of course, these guys are good guys. I'm not sure there's any of them I want to recommend. Do you know what happens? They dropped the manager. That's how it works. Because the policy says that in a situation like this, for us to save funds, Somebody has to go. But the manager is applying sentiments. The manager has to go for these guys to remain. And who says after a while they may still drop one of those guys? Because the truth is, these things don't have sentiments. They don't have emotion. Then another aspect of the financial policy you must look at is monitoring and reconciliation. When you are spending money in an organization, even as the boss, you are a bit careful because you know that the internal audit unit will ask questions. So, is every money I am dishing out going through the right process? Because these people will ask questions, and these questions will have to be answered. Then we must develop a financial reporting system. How do we report this at the end of the day? How do we report this whole process at the end of the day? In wrapping this up, I decided to open our organization's group policy. And I will just go through a few things where I talked about joining our organization. What's the process flow? It starts from before induction. Before induction, at what time frame do we reach out to this person? As soon as the employee accepts the job offer, this is what we do. Inform the employee before the first day where and when and who they should report to, and whether they need to bring any tools or equipment. That information must be sent to them. Send him or her an offer letter or an employment letter. Then the person responsible for this is the human resource manager. Then the documentation they are supposed to submit must be made available to them. In fact, part of what we also do is that we email you and give you access to some of these policies, and you are mandated to go through them. In fact, we are taking that further now. Our onboarding process is beginning to include things like video recording that details all of the process. So you really don't need to meet with anybody. As you get onboarded into our system, you have access to some videos to just go watch. These videos tells you everything about our organization before you start to work with us. So you come in fully prepared. So for us, this is one of the services we offer. For you business owners, feel free to reach out to us. Let's put some systems and structure in place in your business, because we need you to make profitable impact, and we need you to have a life outside of your business. Your wife and children should not suffer because you're trying to make money.